to another episode of Gov Tech Today. I'm Russell Lowery.
And I'm Jen Saha.
And we're looking to bridge the gap between .com and .gov. Today we're going to be talking about the role of conferences and events and summits. I see all these terms around. We're going to peel back some of that mystery and think through what some of the use cases are. So we see these things around. Jennifer, what is going on? What role do they play in the state tech world?
We go to a lot of them. They are constantly filling my calendar. It seems like someone said the other day, it's conference season. And I'm like, what does that mean? I feel like every month is conference season. So yeah, they've been taking up a lot of airtime and a lot of calendar time for me lately. But you know, this is a chance. I want to get in front of 100 state people at one go, and I want to show them what I can do from a technology standpoint. So this is how I do that. I play there.
Give me an example. Who? We don't have to name names. You can if you like, but who sponsors a conference that state employees would go to, and what are some conferences that state employees would not be likely to come to? What's the difference between ones they go to and ones they don't?
Well, up until very recently, state of California employees did not go to conferences in something like 22 states. It was forbidden to travel to those states. There was legislation, thank you, Senator Atkins, that allows state to travel. It was for political reasons. These states had, anti-LGBTQ legislation, or had something that
they defended the state of California in some ways. So
had bans on abortion. Yes. made our governor mad in some way. So people weren't allowed to travel there. In fact, I was in Florida a few weeks ago at a conference, and I'm looking around and there is no one from the state of California there. And everyone's like, Jen, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I have a couple clients here, but no one from the state of California was there. Which in my opinion, it really hurts the state employees that are missing out on these valuable experiences, training, education, networking with their peers across the United States is what they try to get out of these conferences, especially the national ones.
So you see these. So there's some that are banned because they're for political reasons, and then I see there's Amazon has a cloud computing conference in Vegas.
Vegas, Hawaii, probably like Mexico, other countries, probably even like Puerto Rico, even though it's a U.S. territory. Like these are all kind of like no-nos for the perception reason, right? I mean, a group of legislators goes to Hawaii once a year and there's always an article about it, right? So same reasons. It's probably not the best place to hold like a government attendees conference. Vegas is looked at as a huge party. And I mean, I've been there. It is a huge party. Hawaii too.
So like a Dreamforce in San Francisco just last week, a couple weeks ago. Were state employees there? I'm trying to get at why is it that they go and why would they not go? What kinds of conferences do they go to?
I mean, they will go to conferences for vendors that they're already working with. So if I'm a Salesforce administrator with the state, it's definitely in my best interest to chat with my boss and say, hey, can I go to Dreamforce? They're going to be rolling out new stuff. I want to figure out how things are working. I want to network with my peers that are also implementing Salesforce. So that kind of stuff makes sense.
So it's going to make my current implementation better. I'm working on this. I need to be an expert in this technology and in this stuff. And by going to the conference, I'm going to be educated. I'm going to be better prepared to do my job.
I mean, it also draws a lot of partners, right? So if I'm a systems integrator and I'm integrating Salesforce, so I'm Accenture, Deloitte, any of these big guys that are working on it, I'm also going to send an army to that conference because I want to be there and know how I can make what Salesforce is rolling out into something that I can profit off of as well.
Right. So I'm gonna design, it has this capability. I need to understand that so that when I'm designing a proposal in response to an RFP for the state. I know how to write it, how
Exactly.
to include it, how to make my proposal as well as probably meet with the state employees, hear some of their
Yep.
challenges, what are their headaches, what are their pain points, so that I can try and design a solution for their pain points.
I mean, there's also more general conferences. So I was at one just this week that was focused on government innovation. That obviously is a super broad topic.
I've seen about a dozen of those.
It draws, any vendor that works in the technology space is arguably working on innovation. So lots of vendors are interested in it, and it draws a lot of people from the state. So you had the state CIO there, the GovOps secretary there. Their whole management teams were in the house and sat on different panels. You had CIOs from a bunch of different departments doing joint sessions and panels with different vendors, talking about solutions that they had integrated. There was an award session where they awarded really innovative state projects. So, I mean, these things too, they're a draw to IT staff that want to know what other departments are doing on a state level, and to the vendors that ultimately want to sell to all of these people too.
You brought up an interesting question in my mind about the level of employees that go to these things. And I've been at a few, and I talked to an account executive, and the decision-making tree on who has to say yes in order to buy their product goes everything from the staff services manager up to the CIO, and then above into the bowels of the Department of Finance and Department of Technology. And they have to get a yes from everybody along the train. But sometimes they're scrambling in their day-to-day. They're sending DMs, emails. They're trying to connect with a lower level person. Other times, executives at companies, they want to meet with the CIO, and that's the level they think they need to engage with. What are your thoughts on the level that you're going to meet at conferences that you should be targeting? How's that work?
I mean, there's definitely is value in our state CIO knowing your company's name, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, and you sort of address this, those people are, the tip of a very long spear when it comes to making a decision about what vendors are going to be hired at any given department or agency. So I love it. It's kind of great. I love talking to, the employees down on the ground. I'm a security analyst. I'm looking at data management for my department. And, oh, do you know your CIO? No, I mean, they're like 5 levels above me. But I'm like, I want to talk to that person, though. So I always try to sort of seek out. Definitely the CIOs will make an appearance. Like, they were all there. I don't know that any of them stayed the whole day. It was like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my speech, I'm going to sit on the panel that I have to sit on, then I'm going to go, or I'm going to show up to get the award that they gave me. But what I love is, like, you really do draw the people that are there to sort of learn and soak it all in at every different level of a state organization. And the vendors bring it too. Like, I have a client that was there, and they flew this guy in from the East Coast because he's our expert on whatever the topic is that he's presenting. And he's doing the keynote at lunch or, something along those lines. I've never met the guy. I've worked with this company for 5 years, right. And like, I haven't even heard of him, but yeah, he talks a good talk. I work with all the people in California. They're all here too. They bring small armies to these things, but it really is like you kind of have to hit all up and down the chain of command on the vendor side and on the state side to be able to sort of have excellent interactions.
I don't know that it's different on the corporate side, but I have heard a lot of frustrations about from salespeople who are trying to present, and the long decision-making process and all the different layers that it has to go through, and how many times do you have to sell. And then on the more corporate C-suite level side, they have numbers that they want to hit, and identifying when in the sales cycle a customer is going to pull the trigger is a real challenge.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, just the length of the sales cycle period. I mean, the first thing that you tell someone when they're like, oh, yeah, we want to sell to government, like, lower your expectations for quarterly sales numbers. Like some of these processes take 18 to 24 months. Like if you get into SLED, state and local, and education today, you may not see something for 2 years. Like
Wow.
that's a sales cycle in government. Where in the corporate side of it, on the enterprise side of a company, it's like, I got to hit my quarterly numbers. It's so different in government. It's like you may hit one sale the whole year, but guess what? It's going to be a pretty big sale. Like
Right.
California is the 5th largest economy in the world. It's going to be a sizable sale, and you're going to have that sale pretty much unless you really screw something up. Like it's difficult to get fired from the state. If you do a good job, you will keep that contract forever. So, I mean, that's sort of the differences. Like it's a slog in government. It's a slog to change anything in government,
Sure.
right? But it's a slog to, affect sales in government, but it's worth it in the end.
I've talked to a lot of people over the last few months as I'm acclimating myself to this world, and one of the challenges for resellers, and my company's one of them. There's just a wide variety of tools that different resellers bring. Can you talk a little bit about the role of responding to RFPs, and how many companies want their resellers, why they want multiple resellers responding to RFPs on everything that comes out? Can you explain a little bit about how
Sure. It's all about an underlying foundation of government purchasing, and that's competition. Like if a bid doesn't have competition, it is not good by government standards. So that is the underlying foundation. If I want to buy a piece of software, I just go out and buy the software. But if I'm government and I want to buy that piece of software, I have to get more than one bid. How do I do that? There's only one, PeopleSoft software. How do I get more than one bid? I use resellers. So resellers have negotiated contracts with the software providers that allow them to compete against other resellers. A lot of times you can get them at lower than market. You can have special deals with these resellers. Sometimes they'll bundle in services. So, hey, I want to buy that software, but I don't know how to install it or customize it for what I'm looking for. That's the role of sort of resellers in this market. I mean, you hear it called all kinds of different things. Like people talk about this is my channel to sales.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's about if I'm the state and I want to buy software, a specific piece of software, I can buy that software. And it's not competitive from the software standpoint. No matter who they buy it from, they're buying the same piece of software. But I'm getting quotes from 3 different people who will probably give me 3 different prices for that software. So that's how the state justifies it as a competitive bid.
Thank you. That's a very helpful thing. And it seems like I haven't bumped into a lot of resellers at these conferences. It tends to be mostly the state employees and then the companies directly, but there are some there, but understanding those different relationships. Some folks just focus on replying to the RFPs and working it out that way, and others have this other business model. So that makes sense that they would use conference would be more or less valuable. Do the purchasers generally have someone in mind? That this is a complaint that I heard, was that the purchaser generally had somebody in mind that they wanted to do business with, but they needed people to go through the RFP process in order to buy it. And so people felt like they're putting in work in the RFPs for work that they were never going to get. And that can be expensive for smaller businesses who don't have the resources to just fill out RFPs that are no shot.
Luckily, if I'm buying just a simple piece of software, the price quote that I'm going to get from 3 resellers isn't a super involved thing. Like, it's not a heavy lift for these guys. But you're reminding me of something, and it's back when I worked for the state and I would see a state job up for posting, right? Like you have a CEA A or whatever the categories are now. It's been a hot minute since I've been in government. And, it's at this department. What's the first thing you did when you saw that?
You call
and say, is this a real job, right? Is this a real opportunity? Do you have someone in mind? Because you have to post it.
Right.
They have to get 3 quotes.
Right.
But if they have someone in mind, you're not going to waste your time writing that SOQ and replying, putting in all the work and everything. It's really similar, right? Do they have someone in mind? Have they been meeting with one of the other resellers lately? If I read this, does it read like it is meant for someone? Are they asking for qualifications that I don't have, but I know this other guy has? So it's kind of similar. And that's something everyone can relate to. It's is this real or is this already in the bag for someone else? It's a perfect example, right?
And that brings me back to the conversations, to the conferences, events, and summits, where you're building a relationship, you're talking, so that you can sort of parse your time appropriately to where you're going to be most useful. But I saw mostly big companies and not a lot of the small business that the state wants to business with. And so I don't know that I saw any other really small businesses at the ones that I've been to. It's limited, so I'm not trying to be a blanket statement. Can you talk to that a little bit as we wrap up?
I mean, this stuff is expensive, right? Getting in the door over at one of these conferences can be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. A small company, that might be their entire annual marketing and event budget for probably the United States, not just California and not just the state. Maybe they want some local people too. So it's insanely expensive to play in these. And I think that sort of shuts out those lower revenue, smaller businesses that maybe don't have the budgets that are able to stretch. And it is unfortunate because you're right. We have now statutory goals as a state government to purchase 25% of our contracts with small businesses. Right. And if none of them are in the room for that, which is arguably one of the main ways that companies network with state officials, you're missing out on that, right?
Well, I thank you for walking us through kind of peeling back the curtain on events, conferences, and summits that are going on around California. Hopefully, our listeners get some insight into how to do business with the state. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.